She served them in silence for years, but on their wedding day, one sentence from the housemaid destroyed everything. This powerful African drama explores infidelity, abuse of power, silence, courage, and consequences. It is a reminder that truth may stay quiet, but it never stays hidden forever. Watch till the end. The aftermath will leave you speechless. Subscribe now for more stories that will leave you speechless. The city of Lantana buzzed with excitement as news of the grand wedding spread like wildfire. Everywhere people gathered. They spoke about Ismail Kato, the wealthy businessman known for his generosity. His upcoming wedding to Nadia Mensah was said to be the event of the year. Billboards displayed their smiling engagement photos across town. Luxury vendors competed for a place in the ceremony. Social media overflowed with countdown posts and congratulations. To the public, it was a fairy tale union, but inside Ismail's mansion, a darker story brewed quietly. Nadia moved gracefully through the house, directing decorators and tailors with elegance. She was admired for her kindness, beauty, and calm spirit. Many young women envied her, calling her lucky to marry such a powerful man. She believed her marriage was built on prayer and destiny. Every night, she thanked God for blessing her future. Her trust in Ismail was complete and unquestioning. She saw him as disciplined, faithful, and honorable. That belief was about to be tested in the harshest way. In the background of all the preparations stood Aisha, the housemaid. She had worked in Ismail's home for 6 years, quietly observing everything. Most people barely noticed her presence. She cleaned, cooked, and served without complaint. Many assumed she was uneducated and naive. Ismail treated her with indifference, sometimes with cruelty. To him, she was invisible, but Aisha saw what others refused to see. Late at night, when the mansion slept, Aisha heard things. She heard whispered phone calls behind locked doors. She saw Ismail leave the house at odd hours and return before dawn. She noticed unfamiliar perfume lingering on his clothes. She found receipts hidden in drawers that told stories of secret hotels. At first, she tried to ignore it. She told herself it was none of her business. But truth has a way of pressing heavily on the conscience. One evening, while cleaning the guest room, Aisha overheard a conversation that froze her blood. Ismail was speaking to a woman, his voice low and intimate. He laughed in a way Aisha had never heard him laugh at Nadia. He promised her money and protection. He told her the wedding would not change anything between them. That night, Aisha couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding. She knew something terrible was unfolding. Nadia remained blissfully unaware. She practiced her vows with excitement and joy. She imagined her future filled with love and respect. Her friends praised Ismail endlessly, calling him a rare man. When Nadia spoke about marriage, her eyes shone with hope. She trusted Ismail not just as a husband, but as a spiritual partner. She believed God had chosen him for her. Meanwhile, the foundation beneath her dreams cracked silently. Aisha's discomfort grew each day. She saw Ismail's secret lover arrive occasionally when Nadia was away. She watched them laugh freely in the same house where Nadia prayed. Once, Aisha accidentally walked in on them holding hands. Ismail's face hardened instantly. He ordered her out with a sharp command. That night, he summoned her privately. His tone was cold and threatening. Ismail warned Aisha he had to speak about what she saw. He reminded her of her position and her dependency on the job. He told her no one would believe a housemaid over him. To seal her silence, he offered her money. Aisha refused at first, trembling. Ismail's eyes darkened, and his voice became dangerous. "Silence is cheaper than truth," he said. Fear wrapped tightly around her heart. As the wedding day approached, the tension in the house thickened. Aisha moved carefully, avoiding Ismail's gaze. Nadia noticed her quietness and mistook it for shyness. She praised Aisha publicly one afternoon, thanking her for her service. The guests clapped politely. Ismail forced a smile, but his eyes warned Aisha. She lowered her head, hands shaking. That moment planted a seed in her heart. Silence was no longer peace. Wedding rehearsals filled the compound with laughter and music. Drummers practiced rhythms, while decorators adjusted lights. Nadia's family arrived from far places, filling the house with joy. Aisha watched everything like someone watching a storm approach slowly. Every smile felt fragile. Every laugh sounded temporary. She knew joy built on lies collapses violently. The question was when. The night before the wedding, Ismail confronted Aisha again. He cornered her in the kitchen, his voice low and dangerous. He reminded her of what she could lose if she spoke. He promised her trouble if she ruined his plans. Aisha nodded silently, her eyes filled with tears. After he left, she collapsed onto the floor. For the first time, she cried openly. She whispered a prayer she barely believed in anymore. That same night, Nadia knelt beside her bed, praying for a peaceful wedding day. She prayed for a faithful marriage and a loving home. She prayed for strength to be a good wife. Her heart was pure and hopeful. The irony of her prayer hung heavy in the air. Destiny listened quietly. Morning would bring answers no one was prepared for, and the truth would no longer stay silent. Morning light flooded the mansion, bringing with it a false sense of calm. The house buzzed with activity as stylists, caterers, and relatives filled every corner. Nadia woke up smiling, her heart light with anticipation. She believed she was stepping into the happiest chapter of her life. Ismail moved through the chaos with confidence, giving instructions and greeting guests. No one suspected the fear hidden behind his composure. Only Aisha noticed the tension in his eyes. Aisha worked quietly, serving tea and arranging trays. Her mind replayed Ismail's threats from the night before. Every sound made her flinch. She felt trapped between fear and conscience. She wondered how long truth could survive buried. Each smile in the house felt like a lie pressing against her chest. Nadia passed by and thanked her warmly. That kindness cut deeper than cruelty ever could. Later that morning, Aisha overheard a conversation that changed everything. Ismail spoke urgently on the phone in the study. He mentioned transferring money and arranging accommodation abroad. He said the wedding was only for appearance. His words were sharp and careless. Aisha froze behind the door, her breath caught. She realized the marriage itself was a deception. Nadia was walking into a carefully staged lie. The weight of that realization nearly broke her. This was no longer just an affair. Ismail was planning to continue his secret life openly after marriage. Nadia's future was being stolen in plain sight. Aisha felt dizzy as she returned to her chores. Her hands trembled while washing dishes. She whispered prayers under her breath. Silence now felt like betrayal. Meanwhile, Nadia's friends gathered around her, laughing and teasing. They admired her gown and jewelry. Compliments filled the room, boosting her excitement. She spoke about trust and partnership with confidence. Her words pierced Aisha's heart like arrows. The innocence in Nadia's joy felt sacred. Aisha wondered how someone could destroy such purity, and she wondered if God was watching. In the afternoon, Ismail's secret lover arrived quietly at the gate. She came disguised as a distant relative. Her presence unsettled Aisha immediately. The woman's confidence was bold, almost mocking. She walked through the house as if she belonged. Ismail avoided her publicly, but sent subtle signals. Their secret language did not escape Aisha's notice. Danger had entered the house fully. The woman cornered Aisha near the back corridor. Her smile was cold and calculated. She warned Aisha not to overestimate her importance. She made it clear she knew Aisha had seen too much. Threats were disguised as advice. Aisha felt her knees weaken. Power spoke loudly that moment, and truth felt small and defenseless. That evening, Nadia hosted a small pre-wedding dinner. Candles lit the garden beautifully. Guests praised Ismail's generosity and character. He accepted compliments with practiced ease. Nadia looked at him with love and admiration. Aisha watched from a distance, heart aching. The contrast between truth and illusion was unbearable. She felt like screaming. After dinner, Nadia pulled Aisha aside gently. She thanked her for her loyalty and hard work. She even offered her a bonus after the wedding. Tears welled up in Aisha's eyes. Nadia misread them as gratitude. Aisha wanted to speak, but fear sealed her lips. Ismail watched from afar, suspicion burning in his gaze. The moment passed, heavy and unfinished. That night, Aisha couldn't sleep. She paced her small room, battling her thoughts. If she spoke, she would lose her job, her safety, and possibly her life. If she stayed silent, Nadia's life would be destroyed slowly. She felt responsible for what she knew. Knowledge had become a burden. Her heart raced with every possible outcome. Silence began to feel like sin. Across the house, Ismail celebrated quietly with his lover. They planned future trips and secret arrangements. He assured her the wedding would secure his public image. He laughed confidently, unafraid of consequences. He believed power protected him. He believed silence was guaranteed. He underestimated the weight of truth. Pride blinded him completely. The following day, wedding rehearsals took place at the venue. The hall was grand, decorated in gold and white. Musicians practiced melodies of love and unity. Nadia walked through the aisle, rehearsing her steps. Her smile glowed brightly. Aisha stood at the back, watching history rehearse its lie. Each step Nadia took felt like a countdown. During rehearsals, a tradition was discussed. A representative from the household would give a short gratitude speech at the wedding day. Ismail dismissed it casually. Nadia insisted it was meaningful. She suggested Aisha speak briefly as appreciation for service. The room went quiet. Ismail's face stiffened. Aisha's heart stopped. Destiny had just opened a door. Ismail objected subtly, claiming it was unnecessary. Nadia laughed it off warmly. She believed it would honor humility. Aisha felt the room spin. Her voice at the wedding meant everything could change. Fear and purpose collided violently inside her. Ismail shot her a warning glance. The trap had been set unknowingly. That evening, Ismail confronted Aisha again. His anger was less controlled this time. He accused her of manipulating Nadia. He warned her harshly to keep her mouth shut. His words dripped with threat and arrogance. Aisha listened silently, tears falling. When he left, something shifted inside her. Fear began to lose its grip. She packed her small bag that night, not to run, but to be ready. She wrote a short note, unsure if she would survive the next day. Her hands were steady for the first time. Truth had given her courage. She whispered a prayer for strength. Tomorrow would change everything. The wedding morning arrived bright and loud. Guests poured in, dressed in luxury. Cameras flashed endlessly. Nadia looked breathtaking in her gown. Ismail stood proudly beside her, smiling for the world. Aisha stood quietly at the edge of history. Her heart beat fast but steady. The truth was ready to speak. The wedding hall shimmered with luxury as guests filled every seat. Crystal chandeliers reflected golden light across polished floors. Soft music played as photographers captured every smile. Nadia walked in gracefully, her gown flowing like a dream fulfilled. Applause erupted as Ismail stood tall beside her. To the crowd, they were perfection embodied. No one sensed the truth trembling behind the smiles. Only Aisha felt the storm pressing against her chest. The ceremony began with prayers and blessings. Elders spoke of unity, loyalty, and honor in marriage. Each word felt heavy, almost ironic. Nadia listened with tears of joy in her eyes. Ismail nodded solemnly, playing his role flawlessly. Aisha stood near the side, hands clasped tightly. Her heart pounded with every spoken vow. Silence screamed louder than the music. As tradition demanded, speeches followed the vows. Family members praised Ismail's generosity and character. Friends spoke of Nadia's purity and kindness. Laughter filled the hall, easing the atmosphere. Then the master of ceremonies announced a special moment. He called for a representative of the household to speak. A hush fell over the room. Aisha's name echoed through the hall. Murmurs spread instantly. Guests exchanged confused glances. Some laughed lightly, assuming it was symbolic. Nadia smiled warmly at Aisha, nodding encouragingly. Ismail's face drained of color. His confident posture stiffened. Panic flashed briefly in his eyes. Aisha stepped forward slowly, every step echoing like thunder. She took the microphone with trembling hands. The hall was silent, expectant. Aisha swallowed hard, scanning the crowd. Her eyes briefly met Nadia's, then Ismail's. She remembered the threats, the fear, the nights of silence. She inhaled deeply, and then she spoke. "Thank you for allowing me to speak." Aisha began softly. Her voice carried surprisingly well. "I have served in this house for 6 years." Guests listened politely, still unaware. She spoke of loyalty, work, and quiet service. Some nodded in approval. Ismail relaxed slightly. He believed she would stop there, but today, she continued, "I must speak the truth." The air shifted instantly. Nadia's smile faltered. Ismail's body tensed visibly. Aisha's voice grew steadier with each word. "I was told silence was my duty." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Something was wrong. I have witnessed things no wife should discover after marriage," Aisha said. Gasps spread across the hall. Nadia's face turned pale. Ismail stepped forward instinctively. The master of ceremonies froze, unsure whether to intervene. Aisha raised her hand slightly, asking for space. Her courage shocked everyone. She spoke of late-night visits and secret phone calls. She described hotel receipts and whispered promises. The hall erupted into chaos. Nadia staggered backward, barely standing. Family members stood up shouting. Ismail yelled for the microphone to be cut. But it was too late. Truth had found its voice. Aisha reached into her bag calmly. She pulled out printed messages and photos. Screens were passed forward, proof undeniable. A collective gasp filled the hall. Nadia's tears streamed uncontrollably. She shook her head repeatedly, whispering no. Ismail stood frozen, exposed. His power crumbled in seconds. The secret lover stood up suddenly, unable to hide anymore. She tried to speak, but voices drowned her out. Family members restrained her angrily. Guests filmed everything on their phones. The wedding hall transformed into a courtroom. Accusations flew openly. Celebration collapsed into scandal. Nadia collapsed onto a chair, sobbing violently. Her friends surrounded her, shielding her from the chaos. Her dream shattered publicly. The man she trusted stood silent, defeated. Ismail attempted to explain, but no words formed. His lies had no place to hide. Respect evaporated instantly. Security moved in as tensions escalated. The ceremony was halted immediately. Elders argued loudly, shocked and humiliated. The priest stepped aside, refusing to continue. The wedding decorations mocked the tragedy unfolding. Guests left in confusion and gossip. A life-altering moment had occurred. There was no return. Aisha stood still amid the chaos. Tears flowed freely down her face. She had spoken truth, but it cost everything. Some guests glared at her with anger. Others stared with admiration. Nadia looked at her through tears. Their eyes met briefly. In that look was pain, gratitude, and heartbreak. Ismail was escorted out by family elders. His reputation lay murmured behind him. Cameras followed relentlessly. The groom who arrived proud left disgraced. His empire of image collapsed publicly. He realized too late that silence is never guaranteed. Power does not silence truth forever. Truth waits patiently. Nadia was taken away quietly by her family. Her gown trailed behind her like a symbol of lost innocence. She said nothing, overwhelmed by shock. The woman who walked in glowing walked out broken. Her future rewritten in 1 hour. Pain etched itself into her soul. Healing would take time. The hall emptied slowly. Decorations stood untouched, mocking the celebration that never happened. Flowers wilted under harsh light. Musicians packed silently. Guests whispered as they left. Social media exploded within minutes. The story traveled faster than shame. The town would never forget this day. Aisha returned to the mansion that evening alone. She packed her belongings quietly. No one stopped her. Her job was gone, but her conscience was clear. She left without looking back. Freedom felt terrifying and peaceful. The night swallowed her footsteps. Truth had cost her everything. Ismail sat alone in a dark room later that night. Silence mocked him cruelly. His phone buzzed endlessly with messages and calls. None brought comfort. Pride had destroyed him publicly. He finally understood what he underestimated. A housemaid's voice had undone him. Truth had humbled power. Nadia stayed with her parents, refusing visitors. She stared blankly at the ceiling for hours. Trust shattered is louder than pain. She replayed moments she missed. Signs she ignored haunted her. Her heart broke slowly and deeply. Tears became her language. Healing had not yet begun. Aisha slept that night without fear for the first time. She didn't know what tomorrow held, but her spirit felt lighter. She had chosen truth over comfort. That choice reshaped everything. She whispered a quiet prayer. Courage had carried her through, and destiny was not finished. The morning after the ruined wedding arrived quietly. Sunlight touched the empty wedding hall like an insult. Torn decorations lay scattered across the floor. Workers arrived to clean what celebration never truly happened. Every flower felt like a reminder of shame. The town woke up buzzing with gossip. Radios, phones, and markets carried one story. No one spoke of anything else. Ismail locked himself inside his mansion, refusing visitors. The house felt colder, without servants moving about. Every room echoed with memories of control. His phone rang constantly with calls from elders. Business partners withdrew silently. Contracts were suspended without explanation. Respect disappeared overnight. Power proved fragile when truth arrived. Nadia remained at her parents' home, isolated from the world. She refused to answer calls from friends. Her mother sat beside her silently each night. Pain weighed heavier than anger. Betrayal replayed endlessly in her mind. She questioned her judgment repeatedly. Sleep avoided her completely. Trust felt impossible. Aisha boarded a bus out of the city at dawn. She carried only a small bag and heavy memories. Fear followed her into the seat beside her. Yet peace sat quietly within her chest. For the first time, she felt ownership of her voice. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew what she escaped. Silence was no longer her prison. News spread faster than truth could heal. Social media twisted details into entertainment. Some praised Aisha as brave. Others accused her of jealousy and wickedness. Her name became a public argument. Strangers judged her life without knowing her pain. The internet showed no mercy. Courage always attracts cruelty. Still, truth stood firm. Ismail's family called an emergency elders meeting. Shame hung thick in the room. His father refused to look at him. His mother cried uncontrollably. The elders spoke harshly about disgrace. They questioned his moral upbringing. Ismail sat silently, exposed and small. Words struck harder than fists. He had no defense. They demanded accountability publicly. An apology was no longer enough. Compensation discussions began immediately. Ismail's wealth could not erase humiliation. His position within the family collapsed. Respect, once automatic, became conditional. He was stripped of responsibilities. Leadership no longer belonged to him. Consequences arrived fully. Nadia's father demanded a formal explanation. He requested a private meeting with Ismail. The encounter was cold and restrained. No shouting was needed. Disappointment spoke louder than anger. Ismail attempted to justify himself weakly. Nadia's father stopped him firmly. Silence, he said. Shame answered everything. The engagement was officially annulled publicly. Statements were released to the community. The family returned wedding gifts quietly. Guests demanded refunds and apologies. The church distanced itself from the scandal. Elders warned young men openly. The wedding became a lesson Instead of a celebration, a cautionary tale was born. Aisha arrived in a quiet town far away. She rented a small room cheaply. The silence felt unfamiliar but comforting. She found work at a local shop. The pay was small but honest. No one knew her past. She rebuilt herself slowly. Freedom tasted unfamiliar but sweet. Fear slowly loosened its grip. At night, guilt visited her dreams. Faces from the wedding haunted her sleep. She wondered if she destroyed lives unfairly. Then she remembered the threats, the lies replayed clearly. Truth had already existed before her voice. She only exposed it. That understanding brought peace. Courage always feels lonely first. Nadia began therapy quietly weeks later. Speaking hurt, but silence hurt more. She cried openly for the first time. Healing demanded honesty with herself. She forgave herself slowly. Shame belonged to betrayal, not her. Her strength returned gradually. Self-worth reawakened carefully. Pain softened with time. Ismail attempted to reach Aisha multiple times. Messages went unanswered. He wrote apologies that sounded empty. Regret arrived late and selfish. He wanted silence restored, not justice. His loneliness grew deeper. Power could not buy forgiveness. Consequences refused negotiation. Truth closed the door permanently. Months passed, and the town slowly moved on. Another scandal replaced the last, but reputation stayed scarred. Ismail's business struggled significantly. Investors avoided association. His name lost weight. Wealth no longer commanded trust. Pride became his greatest punishment. Isolation taught him humility painfully. Nadia enrolled in school again, pursuing long-delayed dreams. Education became her escape and strength. She rebuilt her identity carefully. Love no longer defined her worth. She learned boundaries through pain. Confidence replaced innocence. Her smile returned gradually. Growth emerged from heartbreak. Survival became victory. Aisha saved money quietly each month. She planned to start a small business. Dreams once buried resurfaced slowly. She trusted herself again. Fear transformed into determination. Her voice no longer shook. Silence lost its control over her. She learned courage doesn't require permission. Freedom felt earned. One afternoon, Nadia recognized Aisha on the television unexpectedly. A short documentary highlighted women who exposed injustice. Aisha's face remained blurred, but her story was clear. Nadia listened with tears. Gratitude overwhelmed her. Truth had saved her future. Courage deserved recognition. Silence would have destroyed her. Forgiveness filled her heart. Nadia reached out privately through an organization. A message of thanks was sent. Aisha read it quietly. Tears fell freely for the first time. Pain softened into closure. Healing touched both women. Betrayal no longer connected them. Truth did. Strength linked their stories. Sisterhood emerged from pain. Ismail watched the same documentary alone. Shame consumed him completely. Regret echoed loudly in his mind. He finally understood the damage he caused. Apologies now felt meaningless. Growth arrived through humiliation. Consequences forced reflection. Redemption remained uncertain. Lessons were permanent. Years later, the story faded into legend. Parents told daughters carefully. Elders warned young men sternly. Silence became a lesson, not an expectation. Courage gained respect slowly. Aisha's business flourished quietly. Nadia thrived confidently. Life moved forward honestly. Truth changed destines permanently. The house where secrets once lived stood empty. Walls no longer heard whispers. Power dissolved when lies were exposed. Silence lost its grip forever. Courage rewrote the narrative. Truth walked freely at last. And no one ever underestimated quiet voices again. The end came with justice.